Hello and welcome to a City Voices interview with Greg Hitchcock. Greg is an Army veteran. He's a psychiatric survivor. He's a documentarian, and he's an artist. So without further ado, let's meet Greg. And my first question to you, Greg, is are you a Marvel guy or a DC guy?
That's a good question. I'm a little bit of both, but I probably lean towards DC because I like Batman. Batman is probably the most realistic superhero without any superpowers to believe in. But I always love Batman. But I also lean towards Spider-Man too. So, but that's more towards Marvel. So I believe both of them are really good, really good comic book publishers.
Are you more into comic book characters that don't have superpowers like Batman?
Yes, I do. I believe that the less powers you have, the more you have to think on your feet. So in order to survive. So
have you had to think on your feet to survive, Greg?
As a matter of fact, I did. I was in the Army back in 1985. I joined after high school. Then I suffered a little bit of a lapse of I have a mental illness through that experience.
Through the experience, was it the Army that triggered you?
I believe it was my environments that triggered my my schizophrenia. I was living in Washington, D.C., and I was living in an area where it was not very conducive to a pleasant life.
Was it dangerous? A lot of crime?
A lot of crime outside the environs. There are a lot of homeless people that I felt really compelled to help, but I was never able to help them. And when I went to stores and stuff, the people that didn't have money followed me because they knew I had money because I went to the stores asking for a handout. So that was kind of my experience in Washington, D.C. during that time.
Did you try to help the homeless in Washington, D.C.? And how did you do it?
I tried to, as a young man, as 18 years old, I didn't know how to help them. I just tried to make do by giving them as much money as I could. I wasn't able to do any volunteer work or anything like that, but I did speak with them, and I had a kind of firsthand knowledge of what homelessness is just because I was in that environment.
What did you learn from them?
I learned that a lot of these homeless people are families, and a lot of the families even are strapped and homeless. And I felt very moved by that. And later in life, I think it really helped me learn how to do more volunteer work with the more disadvantaged people than I am. So that really helped me focus on helping other people.
In New York City, they say like among the homeless, like 50% have a mental illness diagnosis. Did you encounter any homeless people with mental illness?
As a matter of fact, I did. Once in a while, I saw some people that were speaking to themselves, and I believe they were not treated medically. So that really made me sort of like find out what this was all about. And DC was sort of like that, Washington, DC. And through that experience, I got a little bit paranoid, and my symptoms started coming out. Do you want to hear a little bit about my symptoms at all?
Well, I know that you hear voices, but tell us, the voices were different than what one would expect because they only said one thing, right?
Exactly. They called my name Greg, like 50,000 times when I was going through any kind of place, like the PX, the canteen, the store, where I ate, where I showered. It was a faint hearing thing about my name, somebody calling me. If I wasn't treated that time, it might have evolved into some other sounds and noises, but I was treated relatively early on. So I didn't experience the exact full-blown 100% symptoms, but I did hear that that name calling behind me and all the
So
time.
it was like Greg. How long did you hear that? Greg.
I heard that, I believe it started when I was working at the infectious disease ward, and I get a little bit paranoid about that. And I started washing my hands all the time. And that was when I first came to Washington, D.C. from Denver, Colorado, where I got my electronics degree from the Air Force. And from that day on, I would hear a lot of my voices calling my in my head, and that sort of like triggered a lot of things.
What did they? Was it always the same tone, or sometimes they whispered, sometimes they shouted, sometimes they talked?
Well, Dan, that's exactly how I experienced it. Sometimes they whispered to me. Sometimes when I was a little bit more agitated or stressed, it spoke to me louder. And sometimes if I was just laying in bed, I heard them softly speaking to me. So it depends on the state of mind that I was in at a moment.
Well, I'd like to focus on your achievements, but let's talk about, before we get to that, let's talk about, like, you were eventually hospitalized, correct? In a military hospital?
Yes, I was.
And what did it feel like when they first said you have schizophrenia?
Well, I was working at the same place where they hospitalized me, which was at Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, D.C. I was working there, and then my commanding officer from my barracks, they did an inspection. They found my room completely disheveled, and they thought something was up. So they sent me up to the behavioral health clinic and to see a psychiatrist and give me an evaluation. And from there, they gave me some Rorschach tests and other erroneous questions that, and I just found out, I was kind of scared, but they found out that I had schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia. And they, without further ado, I was in the hospital. I was hospitalized.
Well, do you remember how it felt to hear those words?
It felt really, it felt like a hammer fell on my head. It felt like my life was over. I became very suicidally minded. I felt like my whole life that I worked up at was gone, because I heard from the doctors that this mental illness was incurable and that I had to live with it for the rest of my life. And that really scared the bejesus out of me. So I had to, I did think a lot about ending my life when I was in the hospital. And the only thing that kept me from ending my life was the fact that I saw my mother and father looking down on me when I was thinking about it. And I just heard my head, I just imagined in my head, what are you doing, Greg? What are you doing, Greg? So that kept me from really committing to that. So that was really a really scary experience when I first had that.
So after you were discharged, did you ever have a relapse and wind up back in the hospital?
As a matter of fact, I did years later when I was married to my first wife. I thought that this would be a solution to my problems that I was dealing with at the time, but actually added to my problems, because I wasn't really in love with her. I just thought that this would be a solution to my problems. And I convinced myself that I was in love with her. But from the fact that we didn't get along, that became symptomatic to me, and I actually was hospitalized during that period of time. And that was like, I'd say about 15 years later, after I was first in hospitalization.
Oh, wow. So, so after your hospitalization, when did you meet your first wife? How long after your first hospitalization?
It was about 15 years ago. I didn't marry with her that long.
So after your discharge for the first hospitalization in DC, 15 years later after that point, you met her and married her? Is that what you're telling?
I'd say about 12 years from that, because I was discharged from the hospital in 1987.
Okay.
And I found my first wife in 2000, year 2000.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
After your first discharge from the first hospitalization, did you feel, do you know what the word stigma means?
Yes, I do. I do.
Did you impose stigma on yourself more than like even other people were stigmatizing you? You said, oh, I am different. I am not able to do this or that. And then how long did it take you? Because you'd have to get over something like that in order to like have the courage to meet a woman and marry her. Like, how long did it take you to overcome that? Did you experience self-stigma, and how long did it take you, if you did, to overcome that?
I did have self-stigma about myself. The first time I learned that I had schizophrenia, I thought that I was less than anybody else. I thought that I had a disability that will never go away, and no one will look at me the same way again. And it took me quite a while to recover from that self-imposed stigma. The way I did that was I tried to blend into my environment. I went to college after the service. I took up English, and I became the drama club vice president during that time. I graduated with the luck of my family, my friends, but it took a while for that stigma to even go away, even when I had those achievements. And between that and the time I met my first wife, I was in and out of halfway houses in Albany. I was going to day treatment center at the VA, trying to discover who I was. So after that, I actually discovered that I was a great writer. I love to tell stories, and I love to learn from other people's stories. Through a magazine internship I did in Albany, covering the state capitol.
Hold on. Let me get you backtracked a little bit.
Okay.
So while you were going through these day programs and all this, the medical stuff, that's to get the medical support for people with mental health issues, you also had supports from family and friends, and you went and how did your supports help you on your journey, and what supports were there?
Oh, I can count on a lot of people when my mentoring, people that mentored me. Like for instance, when I was at the Catholic Charities housing, when I was there, I met some very remarkable people. I actually, when I first got in there, I was kind of scared, because I thought the stigma of people that were living in houses were kind of scary. But then I discovered that they were ordinary people, just like you and me, just had some hard times. And one of my friends there, John Krupp, he passed away a number of years ago, but when he was there, he and I developed a friendship. And he also had schizophrenia. He had a really more intense experience with schizophrenia, but he and I became very close friends. And one of the things that he told me was, and that this kept in my head, in my heart all the time, he said, keep on punching until you punch a winner, which means don't give up. And that really reinforced my belief that there is a silver lining in any kind of cloud. There is a silver lining. So those kinds of friends that I had really helped me in my maturity and getting back past that self-stigma. So that's what happened, Dan.
Did you experience stigma from family?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I did a little bit. My mother was very helpful, because when she found out that I had schizophrenia way back in the 1980s, she actually picked up some books and researched it. She was a professor at a local college, and she was very helpful. But my father and my brother and my sister may wanted to ignore the fact that I had schizophrenia, that they want to treat me as as any kind of person without schizophrenia would be treated. And I think they sort of like brush that under the carpet, under the rug, which I don't know if that's a self stigma, if that's a stigma or not.
Oh, like brushing it under the rug, not acknowledging it. Yeah,
not acknowledging it. Yeah,
that might be like microaggression or something. Don't worry about the word aggression. It just means well, just the fact that they didn't want to acknowledge it meant that there was something wrong with it. There was something different, something embarrassing, something that the family secret. So that couldn't have been helpful to you.
No, that really wasn't that helpful. I mean, my brother even thought that it's kind of a joke because I don't know if I should say this, but he took one of my pills and tried to use it, see what the effect was.
What? Say that again.
He took a pill of mine when I was diagnosed, and when I came home, just try it out, and he sort of fell asleep when he took my pill. So I'm glad nothing else happened to him, but he took that one time and to find out what I was taking.
Oh,
and I guess.
Well, how did he
do that? Brothers do that.
Well, what did he say about it? How did he describe how he felt with the pill in his system?
He said he was very tired and he fell asleep, and he said afterwards, he said, your medication you take is strong, and and then that's when he turned around and he said he's going to support me, because he didn't realize how bad I had it until he took that pill, and realized how bad I had to take that medication the first time.
Wow. Do you think we should give our family members a pill to give them a little bit of our experience?
I don't think so. I don't think that works.
It worked with your brother.
It did. But how did one little pill? It was not like the whole stuff that I was taking at the time.
So can you tell us the story of like how you got the courage to pop the question to your first wife on a date or whatever you did?
Yes, Dan. My first wife and I were dating just briefly, and we met when my friend John Krupp introduced us, and we hit it off. We were going to this what do you call that place where you drop-in center?
Okay.
Drop-in center, and we had coffee together because she also had she had a bipolar condition.
Oh, okay.
And because we met through friends in that way, and I popped a question to her probably a few weeks after I met her, as a matter of fact, and that's why I said it was not the right moment, it was not the right time. We hit it off, but I don't think I really truly believed that I was in love with her.
Have you ever been in love before?
I've been in love, but I got kind of scared of being in love before I met my first wife.
When were you in love? When were you in love for the first time?
For the first time I was in love when I was in the service. I fell in love with this young National Guard woman, and she was an artist and I was an artist. We drew together. We got to love each other, and the time that we met with each other was in Denver, Colorado. And when I left, because I had to leave, and she had to leave, she had to stay, and I had to leave because I was being transferred to Washington, D.C. I felt kind of bad, and we had our final goodbyes. And I didn't see her again until when I went to Washington, D.C. I did take a trip up to New York City, where she lived, and visited her once with her family. And that was a great thing, but we lost touch over the years. I don't know where she is now, but I wish her the best of luck wherever she is.
So what were you, what was the nature of your conflict with your first wife?
My first wife and I, like I said, it sort of like I had schizophrenia and she has bipolar. And I guess sometimes those two got in the way. Like I didn't I didn't respond to her because she was either high or low or something like that, and I was the paranoid one. I didn't want to know how to react to her behavior sometimes. So that got in the way. And then secondly, I don't know how to cook. One of the things I do not know how to do is cook. So when I cooked one time, she threw food at me and she had some sort of a fit. And that was the time when I said, oh, we got to end this. This is not good. So that's probably one of the final times that I said to myself, we got to end this.
So did you get a divorce?
I got a civil divorce. Yes, we got a civil divorce. Yep.
And then, like, how long was it before you met? It's your second and final wife, right?
Yes, I married my wife now. Last year, this past year in July, actually.
So, oh, okay. So, but when did you? How long did it take to meet her after your first wife?
All right. Well, her name is Luann, and I met her when I was doing an internship at a magazine in Albany, like I said in the beginning. And she was an intern, I was an intern. We got to like each other, but afterwards, we went our separate ways. So I'd say like from 1999 up until this past couple of years ago, we reconnected through LinkedIn. She found me through LinkedIn, and we started going out and dating and stuff. And then actually, after about a year of dating, actually popped a question to her, and she fortunately said yes. She is the light of my life now. So I'm very happy and pleased that we got married.
So you learned your lesson. You remained dating her for a whole year to get to know her. But and did you start living together before you got married?
No, we never lived together before I got married. This is kind of we didn't get married until last July, and she started living with me, and we're still trying to work out some little bit of bumps in the road. But
here, let me ask you this: how does the love what's her name again?
Luann.
Luann. How does your love for Luann compare to your love for the National Guards person?
Well, that's easy to say. When I was in love with the National Guards woman, the lady that was in the National Guard, I was young. I was like 18 years old. I was like head over heels over anybody that felt for me. So that was young love. That was puppy love, I'd say. Now, when I'm mature, older, now I'm going to be 55 in December 7th. I've got that maturity, that experience behind me, and I believe that this is going to be a long-lasting relationship between me and Luann. So that's the difference between the puppy love that I had when I was 18 to my love now at 55.
How important are intimate relationships for fighting self-stigma?
I believe intimate relationships, no matter who it's of, it can be your partner, it can be your friend, it can be your father, your uncle, your brother, your sister, anybody. That intimate relationship is key to recovery for somebody with a mental illness. Without a close, intimate bond, we're alone. We're drifting like driftwood in the ocean. But I believe through my journalism experience that we're very interdependent. We share similar stories. And when I was interviewing a lot of people in my lifetime, we share similar stories. We have hardships, we have recovery. It doesn't matter if you're mentally ill or not. We all have hardships. We all have times we have to get up and rise up above it. So that's exactly what it is. So I believe that intimate relationships is key to good communication, good recovery.
So how is your confidence now in oh God. How is your confidence now in comparison to Greg Hitchcock, who just got out of his first hospitalization?
My confidence is pretty high. My career is really good. I've got a loving wife. I got great friends, great family. I think that is higher compared to when I was first diagnosed and first hospitalized, which I was a very scared young man, far away from home, didn't know what I was going to end up in. And through the grace of God, I became such a powerful journalist and advocate for others with mental illnesses. And I believe
Okay, you mentioned God. Are you a spiritual man or even a religious man?
I am. I believe in the higher power. I believe that we all have destinies, and we all have lives that are sort of like, we all have different paths to follow. But I think that without this higher power, it's kind of like being lost, like an intimate relationships say, like you just said. I think an intimate relationship with your higher power is helpful for a lot of people. So that's what pushes me too. So
is it true that sometimes love from other human beings has some conditions, oh, as long as he treats me well, I will love him. But what about love from a higher power? Is there love from a higher power at all? And if it is it conditional? Can you tell us about it?
All right, yeah, Dan. Love for a higher power, it's not conditional. It's God does not, or the higher power, God, whoever you want to call it, Yahweh or Allah or whoever, it does not place conditions on the human being. I mean, I say all the time that God does not create junk, and that's ultimately true. God does not create junk. Look all around you in nature; it's beautiful. Look, walk the streets, walk the forest, walk into a boat and go into the ocean. This is beauty all around you. You just have to discover it. And so that's why there's no conditions placed on love. Love is unconditional.
Speaking of natural beauty, you did a documentary on, I forget the actual name of the tribe, but the French called the tribe the Iroquois. They were based in New York and other parts of the East Coast, right? And
Yeah.
The indigenous people, such as the Iroquois, celebrated nature, did not, pollute it. Can you tell us about your documentary? What inspired you to create a documentary about the Iroquois, and tell us the real name of the indigenous people, and talk a little bit about that.
Sure. The documentary that I created is called Pioneer Days: Fire in the Valley. It's about the Iroquois, but they call themselves the Haudenosaunee. The Iroquois was the name that was given by their enemies, the French and Huron. And I believe it's called bark eaters or something like that in that language. I believe, I'm not sure. Don't take my word.
Well, yeah. So it's like cinnamon eaters, right? Because cinnamon is bark.
Exactly, Dan. Exactly. So this movie took about a few months to do. I got a micro grant from a nonprofit up in Albany, which is called the Center for Law and Justice. And their reason for that was they wanted to create something to alleviate the discrimination of racism and stuff in the Capital District. And my fact was, racism is not only between African Americans and whites, it's also between other races too. So I thought to myself, well, the Iroquois, they had a bad rap. They were divided, they were conquered, and they were expelled from their homeland. And it took them a long time for that stigma for themselves to be alleviated today, present day. And that was a great documentary. We did really well, and hopefully people will be able to see it.
Did you see the film The Last of the Mohicans with Daniel Day-Lewis?
Oh yes, that was a great film.
Okay, were the tribes, were those tribes, I can't pronounce the other name, sorry, were those Iroquois tribes depicted? Yeah.
Yeah, they were the Mohawk people that lived in the eastern side. They're called the Keepers of the Eastern Door. And that they were the ones that were depicted in that film, and it's based off the original movie, the original book by James Fenimore Cooper, and it's called The Last Mohegans. So it was a great film.
Okay, but how did you feel? Like they were the Iroquois were depicted as violent. There was a lot of scalping going on, and this one tribesman leader was so evil.
Yeah, they did have depict some evil Native Americans, but what we did to them was far worse than what the whites did to them. I mean, what the natives did to us. We did so much destruction to native culture, and even in present day, we tried to eliminate their native languages, and by putting them into boarding schools and stuff, and teaching them only English, and disciplining them against teaching their indigenous languages. And I think that's not fair. That's not right. I think that people should be treated equally. I think their languages should be treated equally. There's so many languages that are disappearing in the world today. You know, Irish, Itzal in Guatemala, and Cherokee. We got to preserve what we have, and that's what I believe. We got to preserve what we have.
What do you think about the holiday of Thanksgiving?
I think Thanksgiving is something that we should all celebrate throughout the whole world. We should give thanks to whoever we believe is our higher power, or whoever you want to give thanks to, for all the things that we have. And you know, people might say, hey, I don't have anything, but that's not gratitude. Gratitude is what you have now, not what you will have in the future, but what you have now. Be grateful for what you have, your life, your health, your longevity, your friends, anything that you have, hold on to that.
So what is the story of Thanksgiving accurate?
No, Thanksgiving is originally the Pilgrims in Massachusetts getting together with natives in peaceful cohabitance. And I believe that was, I don't think that was made up. I think in the early days, we did establish good relations with some local tribes. They helped us from starving by teaching us how to fish, how to grow things in this native land. And we owe a lot to the Native Americans. We owe them self-government. We owe them women's rights, and we owe them the respect of nature that you just mentioned. So I think Thanksgiving is such a vital part of our heritage. So I'm hopefully everybody in this country would celebrate that holiday.
Are you working on another documentary?
Yes, Dan, as a matter of fact, I am. I'm working with some crew people, and we're doing a film about Adirondack train travel. It's about trains that sprouted in the 19th century in the Adirondacks, and the fact that I've got such a great guy. He's working with me. He's trying to develop a dramatic part for this documentary about this mountain lake railroad accident that happened in 1902, and it's a dramatization of that. So it's going to be a great film. It's probably going to come out sometime next year. It'll probably be coming out. I'm working on grants right now, trying to develop fundraising initiatives and grants to raise money for this project. It's going to be pretty good.
The film you did about the Iroquois is on your YouTube channel. Will this future film also be on your YouTube channel when it's done and, you know, seen?
Well, I don't know for sure. Trying to get some partnering with a nonprofit, not-for-profit that has historical piece relating to transportation in the Adirondacks. I don't know if I do partner with them, they would want me to put it on my YouTube channel. But if they don't, I'll definitely have it on my YouTube channel. And we'll see. We'll see what time does.
So a friend of mine, Marvin Spieler, may he rest in peace. He was a mental health advocate and also diagnosed with some kind of psychotic something. But he was very wise. And he said, the ingredients for for anyone really, but people like us in particular, to have a happy life is someone to love, something to do, and something to look forward to. So what you described, so you have something to love, you described that, you have somebody, you have a higher power and people, and intimate partners and wives. And you also have things that you do, like the documentaries and the art and stuff like that, and the media, whatever you do. But what is it that you hope for in the future?
In the future, I hope to, I don't know, reach out to people and touch them in such a way that they'll, as an advocate, that's my prime thing right now these days. And I want to advocate for people with mental illnesses. I want to tell them that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that life will go on, you will get better, you will do great things. And that's one of the things I want to expect from the future is to help others understand that a mental illness is not a life sentence. It's something you must live with, but something that's manageable and something you can get past. So that's what I want to do.
Okay, all right, that's a great message. But let me ask you, what are the advantages and privileges that you had to make that vision a reality that maybe some other people might not have those privileges and advantages?
Well, I had a lot of mentors in my life. That's one of my major advantages. So if you do not have anybody that's a mentor to you, I mean, anybody in any kind of background you may have, any kind of demographic you may ascribe to, you must have a mentor. You have to find that friend, that person that respects you and that also believes in you.
Okay, so mentors, any other advantages or privileges that you have as a human being that maybe someone might not have?
Well, maybe growing up in a middle class family.
Okay, economic status, anything else?
Probably my educational background.
Education, anything else?
My belief, I don't know. I don't know. My belief in myself. I always had a belief in myself.
Okay, unshaking belief, unshaking self. There's a word for it. I understand. Anything else?
And one last thing.
Yeah.
You have to know who you are as a person. You have to know your skills, your abilities. I think if you want to call it higher power God, I think they give you this ability, the skill to do whatever you're gravitated towards. It might not be writing, it might not be filmmaking. It could be acting. It could be constructing a bridge. It could be anything that you have an interest and a love for. And I think that's one of the things that I had in growing up, because I love to create stories. When I was a child, I drew comic books and stuff like that, comic strips, as a matter of fact. And I always loved to tell stories, and that's one of the things I believe that I have a really good skill for.
So it's like the late, great, famous mythologist Joseph Campbell once said, it's important to follow your bliss. But let me ask you, if you were a person of color, African American or indigenous person, would that be would it be much more challenging to achieve the success that you've had?
Well, that's a good question. I believe that anybody that is a minority or might have some more difficult challenges ahead, but that doesn't mean it's insurmountable. I mean, look at all the great African American and indigenous peoples that have lived in our long history. I mean, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, we got Mahatma Gandhi. All these people are role models for people in other subcategories.
Right, but let's be realistic here. You were living in in a low-income neighborhood in DC, was it equally white to people of color? Was it mostly people of color in that situation? What was it like?
In Washington, D.C., it's mostly people of color that live there.
Okay.
The disadvantages. Maybe a lot of the people had disadvantages, and that they were people of color. Mm-hmm.
So for every one successful person with who's a person of color, like the people you mentioned, there are masses of people, like whole cities and neighborhoods with people of color where they're struggling. And I mean, this is true for white people too, but by and large, do you believe that being white is a privilege?
I guess being white has its privileges, but Hillary Clinton always says it takes a village, and it doesn't take just the individual to rise up above, but it takes a whole community to reach out and accept people for their character, and one individual might have the chance to reach out above the stars, but it takes a whole community to do that. Even me, I didn't pull myself out. I had a whole community. And I think even the masses have to reach out to the community for their resources, like I have, and in order to do good in life.
Okay. So, well, all right. Is there anything that you would like to close out on and impart upon this little audience we have?
Well, Dan, that's. I want to conclude by saying that if you want to reach out to me, my website is Greg Hitchcock Communications LLC.com. You can reach out to me through the website. I have my contact information. I've got my book, Schizophrenia in the Army, that I wrote about my experiences in the service and afterwards. I've got my films, and so if anyone want to reach out to me, that's the best website to go. Greg Hitchcock Communications LLC.com.